Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered why you might look like your parents but still have features that are uniquely your own? Maybe you got your father's height but your mother's smile. This fascinating pattern of similarities and differences is exactly what genetics tries to explain. More than 150 years ago, a simple monk named Gregor Mendel, while working in his monastery garden, made discoveries that would change biology forever. By carefully experimenting with pea plants, he uncovered the basic laws of inheritance, the rules that tell us how traits are passed from one generation to the next. These laws are called the law of dominance, the law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. Together, they form the foundation of classical genetics and continue to influence everything from agriculture to medicine today. Let's start with the law of dominance. Imagine mixing two contrasting traits, say, tall pea plants and dwarf pea plants. What Mendel found was surprising. In the first generation, only tall plants appeared. Here's why: when two contrasting traits are present together, only one shows up in the offspring. This is the dominant trait. The other one hides in the background. That's the recessive trait. For example, when tall plants with the gene pair TT are crossed with dwarf plants TT, the first generation, or F, is all tall because the capital T, the tallness factor, dominates over the small t. This same principle applies to humans too. Think about free versus attached ear lobes. If you inherit both, the free ear lobe trait dominates, and that's what you'll see. Now, let's move to the law of segregation, also known as the law of purity of gametes. Mendel discovered that the two factors, or alleles, that control a trait do not blend together when gametes, that is, sperm or egg cells, are formed. Instead, they separate, and each gamete gets only one factor. For example, if a plant has the genetic makeup TT, one gamete will carry T and another will carry T. When fertilization occurs, these gametes come together randomly and the original pair is restored in the offspring. This explains the famous 3 tall, 1 dwarf ratio we see in the second generation when hybrids are self-pollinated. Notice in Mendel's diagram how tall and dwarf plants reappear, proving that the traits remain pure and never get lost. Now here's where things get even more interesting: the law of independent assortment. Imagine you are not only looking at height in pea plants, but also the seed color, yellow or green. Mendel found that the way height is inherited is completely independent of the way color is inherited. When he crossed round yellow peas with wrinkled green peas, the offspring showed brand new combinations like round green and wrinkled yellow. Isn't that amazing? This law explains why siblings in a family can look so different from one another, because traits like hair type, eye color, and height all assort independently, creating endless unique combinations. The dihybrid cross gave Mendel the phenotypic ratio of 9:3:3:1, a beautiful proof of genetic variation. Now you might be thinking, why do Mendel's laws matter to us today? Well, they are the guiding principles behind plant and animal breeding. Plant breeders use these laws to create crops that are more nutritious, disease-resistant, or higher yielding. That's why we enjoy hybrid varieties of rice, wheat, and fruits. Animal breeders rely on them to improve cattle, poultry, and even pets for better traits. And in humans, doctors and geneticists use these principles to understand how genetic disorders like hemophilia or sickle cell anemia are passed down. So, Mendel's simple pea plant experiments laid the foundation for some of the most important advances in modern biotechnology and medicine. Let's take a closer look at Mendel's actual experiment, the classic tall versus dwarf pea plants. He began by crossing a tall pure-breeding plant with a dwarf one. The result? All the offspring in the first generation were tall. This was the dominance at work. But when these tall hybrids were self-pollinated, the second generation revealed a 3 tall to 1 dwarf ratio. The hidden dwarf trait reappeared. This clearly proved the law of segregation. Look at the diagram here. You can see tall plants labeled TT, hybrids TT, and dwarfs TT neatly segregating into predictable patterns. Mendel's genius lay in his ability to see order and ratios in what seemed like simple gardening. This experiment is a perfect example of how dominant and recessive traits remain intact and continue across generations. Let's quickly connect everything we've explored today. Mendel's 3 great laws, dominance, segregation, and independent assortment, together explain the mystery of heredity. The law of dominance shows us why some traits always appear when mixed. The law of segregation tells us that traits never blend but separate cleanly during gamete formation. And the law of independent assortment reveals why each new generation is full of unique combinations. From the garden piece of Mendel's monastery to the genetic research labs of today, these principles remain as true as ever. Isn't it incredible that by observing plants in his garden, Mendel uncovered the universal rules of inheritance that apply to all living organisms, including you and me? Remember, every time you notice family resemblances, from dimples to curly hair, you're seeing Mendel's laws in action. Biology truly is the science of life, revealing the hidden patterns behind the living world.